Welcome to Rise and Thrive Conversations for Greatness, the beacon for personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and the path to success. Today, I'm thrilled to have a remarkable individual on the show who embodies the essence of agility and innovation. The Swiss Army knife of Agile, he excels in transformational work. With a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, this academic foundation fuels his technical prowess and strategic thinking. Beyond his professional achievements, his life is a symphony of balance, a dedicated family man, a musician with a rebel's cause, and a leader who ignites teams with his can-do attitude and his infectious, positive energy. Be prepared to be inspired by his relentless pursuit of continuous improvement and his extraordinary ability to elevate those around him to greatness. Aaron Holesgrove, welcome to the show.
Johnny Merko, I've missed you so much. It's so great to talk to you again, man. It's so great.
Oh, how cool is it? How cool is it, mate? This is one of the reasons I love doing the podcast, because I get to reconnect with great people who I've had conversations of greatness in the past with, and we can share them with the world.
We've had a few giggles, haven't we?
Now, I did say symphony of balance in the intro, but I guess sometimes it feels like a bit of a mosh pit with your love for heavy rock and the big family that you manage. I'd love to give our audience a sense of your life. Can you tell us a bit about your family life? Let's start with that.
Family life? All right, okay. The first thing I always tell people these days when I introduce myself is that I have 8 children. Then you see the jaws dropping and it's like, I'm not joking. And then the first question after that is always, are they all yours? No, I have 4 biological children. I'm kind of like the Brady Bunch in my family. So I have 4 children of my own, as well as 3 stepdaughters and a foster son, and a partridge in a pear tree.
And you explained that to me when we first met as well, and my jaw did drop.
Yeah, I credit all of my management and leadership skills to parenting, actually, because it made me grow up. Yeah, it's the only job you'll ever do for the rest of your life, and you'll never be able to quit and move on from. And it makes me work hard. That's for sure.
I love the way that you look at it and you take those lessons from it, and it's been a catalyst for personal growth in your life. And I really admired you from the first time you said that, because I could see that you were smart. I could see that you can build rapport easily with people. I knew you were a senior professional in the tech world, and you also got this family life that you balance in the background. So I was probably like a lot of other people going, mate, how do you do it? I'm struggling with 2 kids in a job. What are you doing to keep that smile on your face?
Well, you certainly find a level of energy that you didn't know you have once you become a parent. I think all parents can relate to that. But, my partner and I, we always say we think having that many kids is easier than having 2 kids. Because number one, like when you've got, say, 1 kid or 2 kids, they're always like, Mom, Dad, I'm bored. I want to hang out. I want to talk your ears off. When you've got that many kids, they can all hang out with each other, And, my eldest 2 kids in the household are 16 and 14. And they help around in the house a lot. They're amazing. They love their younger brothers and sisters. And they all keep each other company. And it's always a party in our house, like all the time, and there's just heaps of kids everywhere. And it's usually a minimum of 8. There's the kids in the neighborhood. This is the hangout joint because there's so many kids to hang out with, and we're always like, the more the merrier, it's not a problem for us at all.
I love that inclusive mindset that you have, and I know you have that in the workplace as well. I know, listeners, you can probably already see and hear Aaron's energy. Super energetic. He's loved by all, and especially the teams that he's been in and influenced. It's like a superpower. And I'd love to know, Aaron, if you can share with the audience what you think and do to generate that kind of positive influence.
Yeah, no worries. Well, that's the sort of the main topic that I was going to come on here and talk about today, not just my background and my past and what got me to this point. But I thought what would be interesting for your listeners is to hear about some soft skills development. Particularly, I'm going to talk about the SCARF model. It's something that I was taught several years ago, which is such a game changer for me because it's all in relation to how you interact with people, your empathy skills and how you communicate with people. because when you can get on another person's level, you're going to get along with them so much better. That's just a natural thing. And I'm a guy who comes from a technical background, so I used to hide behind a computer screen, and it was a natural evolution in my career, to move on from software development to technical lead roles to leadership roles. Being a manager of a team or being a project manager, whatever the case may be, and those soft skills that you have where you interact with people are the things that you really need to work on and refine in order to be able to be successful at that. And so, SCARF is an acronym. It stands for Status, Certainty, Autonomy, Relatedness, and Fairness. And so basically the idea is that if you're thinking about all 5 of those things at all times when you're interacting with people, then you're putting yourself in the best position to get along with others. Now, this is my mentality all the time. In fact, when I've done mentorship of others, typically senior developers wanting to become a technical lead, they know all the technical stuff. They're just looking for extra skills in get along with people and interacting with people and managing people in order to take that next step in their career. This is always where I start. It really helps their mentality a lot. Even getting them to put those 5 words on Post-it notes and stick it to their monitor. Think about these things. Think about them. And there's plenty of examples I'll be able to share in this conversation in relation to that.
Yeah, because I have heard that, I'm generalizing here, but technical skills can be easily taught, but the softer skills are harder, or attitude is harder. And those kind of mindset and soft skills, I think they can be taught, especially if you're willing and coachable. But I'd love you to take us through those 5 words in the SCARF acronym, and tell us more about it, please. I'm curious.
Yeah, sure. Well, to your first point, that's really important. Soft skills versus hard skills. If you're someone listening who's not familiar with the term soft skills, so a hard skill might be, say, learning a programming language or doing change management, talking your language now, Johnny. But that's a hard skill, doing something. The soft skill is more in your personality, how you interact with others. And I always say hard skills are something that you teach to people. Soft skills are something that you learn from people, right? You can't be told how to interact with people. What you can learn is learn from others and find inspiration from others in regards to how they interact with people. And you learn something to the extent that you go, I liked that. I'm going to add that to my personality as well. You can't teach it to them. All you can do is share and give people examples and give them some insight. And then they're going to make their own decision in terms of whether that resonates with them or not. And that helps complete their personality.
I love how you've put that, mate. That's so good. So good.
SCARF was actually developed by an Australian called Dr. David Rock. He's a neuroscientist. And he did a study for a number of companies, and he wrote a book about it. It's called Quiet Leadership, and I'd recommend it to anybody. I listened to the Audible version of it. So I was able to do that whilst on the treadmill and doing the dishes and stuff like that. I had a good time listening to it. But basically, he was commissioned to do this study because there was a number of companies that were saying that they wanted, like this flat level sort of mentality in terms of, how a company conducts itself with its people, as opposed to a hierarchy. And they wanted people to get along better and cooperate with each other better. And so through his studies, what he came up with was that the fundamental thing is that if you violate a person's sense of self-worth, that you trigger the same fight or flight response in people as if, like, say, back in prehistoric days where a Neanderthal's being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. Our brains are hardwired to minimize threat and maximize reward. That's just primal. It's in our heads, right? We all think that way.
Yeah, and survival. So what you're saying then is if your self-worth is kind of compromised or put into question or whatever, those same triggers happen in our brain.
And scientifically, it's not just in terms of like the way that you think, but there's an actual brain chemical that's released. So say like I'll give you a good example, right? As I said earlier, I come from a technical background. I'm in my 40s. I also have a bad back and a bung knee. So that should tell you everything that you would need to know about me in terms of how much I like running. Like not at all. Not at all. But I can tell you right now, if I saw one of my younger daughters walking near a busy road or something like that, there isn't an Olympic sprinter in this earth that could run faster than me to them. to save them from danger, and that brain chemical gets released, and it's like the Hulk effect, and off you go. You can do things that you didn't know that you were capable of, right? So that's what happens. But the exact same thing happens. The brain chemical is released when you violate a person's sense of self-worth. So people aren't themselves. They lose their temper. They get offended. And so when you're triggering that, naturally trying to interact with people when this brain chemical's been released is going to be far more challenging. And so that's why the SCARF model is so beautiful, because it's designed by a neuroscientist who's proven this theory at a scientific level, that if you observe those 5 different things in people, you are giving yourself the best chance to not trigger the fight or flight response in people. And therefore, you're going to be interacting with them so much easier and so much better.
I can really see that. So because then you'd be less emotional and maybe a bit more logical. Not that there's anything wrong with being emotional, but I'm hearing what you're saying. I think I've interrupted you, so I'm going to be quiet because I'm loving this.
No, that's okay, because you're exactly right. And it's just, that's how I'd answer your earlier question in terms of what's allowed me to be successful in the workplace as I've transitioned out of being a guy on the tools, being a technical person, and now, working with others that are doing that sort of work, and I'm not doing it myself. Acknowledging them, their sense of self-worth, giving them certainty. I'm a project manager. I'm in the business of certainty. That's my job. Autonomy, right? So not basically making decisions for people, allow them to feel like they're involved in the decision-making process. Being relatable, like naturally, particularly with software developers, I can relate to them quite strongly because I've done it before. But I also know what it's like to feel a little shy, shy of speaking to people, and being able to empathize with how they think. Put yourself in their shoes, not what you think they should be doing or whatnot. Just imagine being them and being able to meet people at their level. And then fairness, of course, look, it's fair to honor a person's sense of self-worth. It's fair to give them certainty. It's fair to give them autonomy. It's fair to be relatable with them, And that's why SCARF works so beautifully. I think in our conversation, I'd love to really focus on the S in SCARF most, status, because that's the biggest one, right? There's a lot to unpack there in terms of good things to do, not so good things to do.
I thought the S was self-worth.
No, it's status. But overall, SCARF is about a person's sense of self-worth. But this is the biggest.
Right. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah,
right.
This is the biggest component of it. Yeah.
So the S was for status, was it?
That's right.
I gotcha. And then when you were talking about self-worth, can you clarify that for me? Actually, I'm pretty dumb.
I know that you're not. I've seen you in the workplace.
I know. Well, I always talk about words create your world. How silly what I just said. Anyway, I just did it again. Oh, no. I'm in a continuous loop. All right, let's. Can you clarify while we were talking the self-worth part of? I get the benefits of self-worth, but were you saying that's a benefit of using this model?
Yeah. So, all right, there's heaps to unpack here. All right, so let's begin. So, first of all, let me give you some examples of violating a person's status, right? And these are common examples you might see in the workplace. So, example number 1. I remember a situation where I saw in the workplace, not in my current job, where a technical lead saw that a defect was being worked on and it was taking quite a while. And a developer was struggling with it. And what this technical lead said in a meeting with that developer present was, gosh, I could have got this done better if I'd just done it myself. Now, spend a moment, even if you're not a technical person, imagine being that developer in that meeting. What do you think would have happened?
This was in front of people too.
This is in front of the developer who was working on the ticket.
Yeah.
Imagine how you'd feel if that were a developer. What do you think would happen?
Yeah, you'd feel crap, wouldn't you?
It's 2 words. They each start with F. I said it earlier. Fight or flight, right? Straight away. Get your neck up.
I thought you were going to say fucking fucked.
I would never do such a thing, John. Have you ever known me to swear?
Now I've got to put an E in the podcast show because I swore.
No, naturally the guy's fight or flight response gets triggered, and he gets defensive, and he's going, "Oh, you didn't tell me all the information that I needed to know," and details. Okay, naturally that created a breakdown in that conversation, and it actually even caused a breakdown in their working relationship moving forward. But it was a violation of the guy's status. There was an implication of hierarchy, like I'm better than you. Whereas we know the whole management versus leadership discussion. Management is all about power and responsibility. Leadership is about empowerment and taking that second word and splitting it into two: response and ability. And being a great manager can be a lot easier because you can pull rank. It's like, well, we don't have to debate how to get something done. We're just going to do it my way, right? But being a great leader is also is about being able to be collaborative and work with people. So a much better way of handling that situation would be to offer support. Listen, to be honest, this is taking longer than I thought it would have. Is there something I could do to help? Is there something perhaps I did wrong? And these are the sorts of things where when you're acknowledging a person's status and being able to be honest about it, that's where naturally you can imagine that conversation would be different than the one from the example that I gave, right?
Totally different. That also gives you an opening to have the conversation rather than just beat you with a stick and told you that you're crap. That doesn't leave any possibility for opening the door to having a conversation for a resolution.
Of course.
What you said does.
Yeah, you don't want to trigger the fight or flight response. And then so in avoiding that, you're going to have a better conversation. It just makes total sense, right?
Yep.
So another good example of status. So I was, this is a personal example. I was on my phone and I was being asked to change a setting on my phone because, Apple have introduced new features. The details aren't important, but I needed to change a setting on my phone so I could connect it to a photo printer. And I couldn't figure it out straight away. And I had someone come over to me and just snatch my phone out of my hand and goes, "I'll do it." Can you imagine my reaction? It's like, that was a bit rude. Do you think I'm too dumb to not figure it out myself? Perhaps if you had an idea, you could have just said, "Hey, you look like you're struggling a bit there. Could I help?" I think I could give you a bit of assistance with that. Again, and when my fight or flight response was triggered, naturally I was looking at that person thinking, I'm not very happy with you right now. And then there was a bit of awkward silence for quite a while whilst shopping, right? And then it wasn't so much fun anymore whilst we're out shopping together. This is the thing, so it's always about acknowledging someone's status. Like, okay, I might be someone who needs a bit of help right now. So that doesn't mean I'm stupid. It just means I'm struggling a bit right now. There's a big difference, and how you think about that, how you act and how you approach those situations is going to make all the difference, because fight or flight response is not going to help.
No, and that's really something to be aware of as well as someone experiencing that, because those situations do occur to us. And I guess it takes that, we've got to take a beat to go, that person's intention was to help me, but the way that it was executed has left me feeling less than.
Yeah, look, and that's a really good point to bring up, John, because the reality is most people aren't nefarious, right? It's just they inadvertently trigger the fight or flight response in people, right? And it's being able to really be honest with yourself and think about that stuff, to actively seek out to inadvertently do these things. Most of the time, we don't mean to do that stuff, right? But nonetheless, it happens, and then you've got a breakdown in communication.
Yeah, and we're human, so it's definitely gonna happen because we're human.
Look, here's a simple one, John. Eye contact. All right, you're like just talking at someone rather than talking to them. You could trigger the fight or flight response. It's like, do you think I'm just such a less of a person that I'm not even worth looking at while speaking to? You're just going to talk at me like I'm a pet, or I'm in the military or something, barking instructions at me. It can trigger the fight or flight response in people. This is why people say that 93% of communication is nonverbal, right? It is important. Making eye contact, making people feel like you're connected in your conversation, because it does make all the difference.
I
It
love
makes
that.
people feel like they matter, you know?
I love that because what you're saying there, because it's about you taking responsibility for your own communication
Yeah,
and not triggering this fight or flight. So yeah, love that personal responsibility. And once you have that awareness that your communication, if not done in a certain way, may have that effect, that's pretty powerful.
absolutely. Here's another example for you. It's a bit left of field, but it's a good one. My partner and my 6 children I have full time in my house here are all Aboriginal. And if you're someone who has met my partner and 6 children, like I know you have, John, you would know they're all as white as snow. They don't look Aboriginal, right? And so, how to say this very uh, delicately, but basically, when it comes to Aboriginal culture, it only takes about 2 generations of people to effectively whitewash, breed out Aboriginal heritage in terms of distinct physical characteristics, right? But it's also the case in Aboriginal culture that, there's no such thing as being half Aboriginal or quarter Aboriginal or anything like that. It's you're Aboriginal or you're not. And and so yeah, like my family are a good example of people who have every right to feel Aboriginal because they are Aboriginal. Doesn't matter whether they look it or not, you know. And so in my household, like my foster son plays a didgeridoo. He really enjoys it. My stepdaughter, one of my stepdaughters, is really fascinated by Aboriginal art, and she loves how every piece of Aboriginal art is actually about telling a story. There's a deliberate technique in the symbolism that's used in artwork, which is to tell a story. It's even a form of writing, and she's really researched that stuff because she finds it fascinating. And so, like for us as parents, we encourage this. I'm not an Aboriginal person myself, but my partner is. And so this is something that we encourage and embrace because they have every right to feel connected to their culture because it is part of their culture. And it's become a part of their sense of self-worth to be connected to their culture. And so we encourage that irrespective of what they look like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just another great example of status, to acknowledge their status. That's where they're at in their lives, and to be the kind of parent that encourages them to pursue what they want to be in life. Yeah, you can imagine if by some stretch of imagination you were being dismissive of these sorts of things, that would be such an egregious violation of status and their sense of self-worth, and that's not fair at all, you know.
I can really see when you put it that way how, especially with that topic, how that can trigger that fight or flight and how those discussions are often emotional,
Yeah, absolutely. Because,
especially if your status is kind of violated, yeah, from what I'm hearing from you.
well, yeah, and then I guess it's even for me, it's a part of my sense of self-worth that I'm being someone that's encouraging that. You know, I talk
Gotcha.
about it openly in the workplace amongst my friends. I'm talking about on this podcast to all of your listeners. Yeah, this is a part of me. This is a part of my life, and I'm proud of it. Um, and so if someone were to violate that, naturally it would trigger the fight or flight response in me, right?
Mm.
Sometimes being sharing and talking about who you are and what you're about and what you stand for can also help others to not inadvertently trigger your fight or flight response. But ultimately, this is what you're always working towards.
Yeah. Well, and I can see, and I've experienced it myself, that with your level of authenticity and the willingness you have to share yourself professionally and personally, if you know what I mean, I'm not trying to be a
Yeah.
smarty pants when I say that, that builds up rapport because you're getting to see the real man.
Yeah, and that comes to relatedness, and we'll certainly get to that as well.
All right. Yeah.
But
No
yeah, it
worries.
all works together. It all works together. So these are the keys to success.
Should we go to certainty?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. So we've
And
done S for status. Let's go C for certainty.
so the obvious one with certainty is how long is this going to take? But it's not just about that. Certainty is also where is this conversation going? What kind of outcome are we looking to land on here? And it's an easy one to not really think through. I always kind of say certainty is the thing that we think about and we don't necessarily talk about. right? In our brains, we think that we're offering certainty in terms of how we pre-thought something, but then what comes out doesn't necessarily equate to offering someone else certainty, right? So here's a great example of violating certainty. And you've got to imagine the fight or flight response doesn't have to be, an anxiety breakdown or something like that. It can just be a little annoyed. It could be a bit miffed or a bit offended or something like that. So, but here's a great example of a violation of certainty. Hey, John, you got a sec?
Yep.
Now, I'm going to speculate, John, that right before you said yeah, your thought process consisted of something like this. Of course, not actually going to take a second, is it? One, right? There's your 1 second. So, how long is this going to take? Like, is it going to take 5 minutes? It's going to take 5 hours, 45 minutes. I've got places to be, a podcast to do. And, what am I getting myself trapped into by accepting this exchange of conversation, right?
Yeah, there was a bit of that because, like, have you got a second? It's like, well, first thing I thought was, yeah, for you, of course. But then it's like, what's this about? Those were kind of thoughts I was having. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other part of it too. So like, what am I getting myself into? Is this going to be like, I want to pour my heart out to you and dump all of my relationships problems on you, or I want to just have a whinge about my life in general, or do I want to talk about the weather? Like, you don't know, but it's something that we all say all of the time, almost because it's become part of being Australian. Even this is just something people say, right? You got a sec, but there's actually no certainty attached whatsoever. Now, imagine if I came to you, John, and I said this and said, hey, John, would now be a bad time to spend 5 minutes having a quick chat? The reason why I want to reach out is because I wanted to pitch an idea to you for your next podcast episode. And I think that your listeners would really like it. And I think you'd really like it too.
Dude, that's so awesome. Such a different experience from the first example, and so clear in the communication, and almost generating the desire to want to give you the time because of that certainty that you're giving.
Yeah, but also you can also think to yourself, well, I've got 5 minutes. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, you can always make time for 5 minutes, you don't have to look at your watch. But more so, the point is, in the first example, I guess you trigger the flight or flight response a bit, like there's a bit of panic, like, uh-oh, what am I myself getting into? Whereas in the second example, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, right?
There was definitely no fight or flight response in the second example.
So it's a good one to think about. We all screw up at that one all the time, even me, right? I'm giving examples of stuff that I still screw up at every day. I always like to say that, yeah, you'll always meet lots of people that are a 10 out of 10 with a hard skill, like an ace programmer or, an amazing technician or engineer or something like that. But no one in this earth is a 10 out of 10 in soft skills, and they never will be. It's life's mission to aspire to be a 10 out of 10 in soft skills. That's why it's good to talk about this stuff openly and trigger the thought process that come with the examples, because you can think to yourself, yeah, I do that all the time. And it's good to be aware of it and to have those honest conversations for yourself. Like, yeah, you got a sec? Yeah, I do that all the time. And I guess, and I'm interested to ask you this question, John. I know that you've said that to someone before, at least once in your life.
Yeah,
Had
for
you
sure.
ever thought to yourself, I wonder what someone thinks when I ask them that question?
Would have never occurred to me, apart from now when you're pointing that out and giving me and the listeners the awareness to understand the effect that that type of communication might have on someone when you're not giving them the certainty, but you're trying to elicit a response from them for a commitment in time for something that you don't know what's going on with.
Yeah, we're all working jobs where we've got people that we need to answer to. They're always stereotypically time poor, I think is fair to say. People that are our bosses and managers and stuff like that. Yeah, and so it can become such an effective thing to be able to reach out and say, could we have a 15-minute chat, please? Situation, XYZ outcome that I'm looking for out of that conversation.
Oh, that's gold. And I also love the way that you put our. Can you say it again? Because it was so great. It was something like, and our life's mission is to try and.
Yeah, so
You didn't say master these things or whatnot, because there's, I always think there's always another level to go to, and that's where the juice of life is, and that's the growth that we want to experience, and that's why shows like this and books we read and inspiration that we get all pour into that, and the people that we meet and the lessons that we learn all pour into that. But you really crystallize it really well.
I've had great mentors. I've been very, very lucky in my life. Very lucky in my life. But some great general managers, CEOs, and mentors in general that have taught me so much, and I've been able to learn from them. And yeah, parts of their personalities are in me now. And I credit so much of my own success to those amazing mentors that I've had a chance to learn this sort of stuff from.
Oh, and it's a credit to you, mate, for being coachable, willing, that curious mindset. These are the traits that I've noticed in people that are great, or that are on the path to greatness. I don't know if you ever get there, but it's great walking the path, and I applaud you for that, my man. So that's certainty.
Yeah.
We finished with certainty because that was just gold in the certainty there. Anything else you want to say before we move on to autonomy?
Yeah, well, I guess the last thing that I would say in terms of certainty, and this is a good one to think about, right? I had an amazing person that's taught me so much, teach me this. Imagine the 5 stages of escalation, we can call it that, right? At the bottom, you've got drama and emotion, then you've got issues, problems, solutions, and then at the top, you've got vision. Now, the first four require context if you're going to get into it, right? That it's going to be not a quick conversation, right? To talk about issues in detail and stuff like that. But vision is different. Vision is all about what is the current situation, and what kind of outcome are you looking for? And so it can be an amazing thing in terms of staying on track and being able to offer someone certainty and estimate your time to a degree that you can actually stick to by sticking to the vision. All right. This is the facts in terms of a situation that is happening. This is the outcome that I'm looking for. I have these conversations with my managers all the time. It's actually kind of funny because I've always been at a middle management sort of level, and I manage up all the time because managers, executives and stuff, they don't want to have to be managing down all the time. It's so frustrating for them, right? And so in my interactions with my managers, they're the ones that walk away with a to-do list, not me. They know that when I reach out to them, I'm going to go, situation, I need a decision. Here's 3 options and my recommendation. Go.
Love it. That's making life pretty easy for them as well by showing them 3 options and your recommendations. So it's that old saying, is it don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. So you're doing that, and that would feel great for them to know that you're on the ball so much to do that and present it just on a platter so they can make their life easier.
And I'm willing to bet my managers will listen to this episode too, and then afterwards message me and go, "You do that to me all the time. Now I know you do it on purpose."
Well, and it shows the sign of someone that thinks about how they communicate, someone that
Yeah.
has that vision to know what they want or where they want to go, and then taking the action and the steps to go there. I think that's super commendable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So autonomy, that's a good one, right? Because there's so many ways that we can think about in terms of offering people choice. All right. I actually find that in the workplace, you might find that autonomy happens a lot. It's in personal relationships that it doesn't. So a classic example is parents and kids. Parents are making all the decisions for their children, and they naturally just think to do that. Children naturally think to be followers. But starting to work into conversations the idea that people have choice, and not just the illusion of choice, but genuine choice. Simple things like, what would you like to have for dinner? You know, what have you been in the mood for lately? It's offering people autonomy. And the idea is that you're not implying rank all the time in how you communicate with people. It's just a communication between 2 people. It doesn't matter what your relationship is, parent, child, manager, subordinate, whatever the case may be, a conversation amongst equals is so much more empowering, and you're going to have such a better conversation.
I can get that intellectually from what you're saying, and it just really hit me when you gave that example, and there's probably others out there that might have had the same revelation. I do all the food stuff around the house for the family, and I'm pretty much just telling them what they're going to eat. So there's no autonomy. There's no what would you like? I mean, the kids know Friday night's pizza night and they absolutely love it. So that's good. So we've decided on that one. But yeah, other times I'm not really involving them in the decision, and I think they would like to be.
Perhaps, but it's perhaps not even the best example, because the reality is, right, sometimes as a parent, you need to just make decisions and keep things moving, right? But you can always have a conversation with children to the extent of, I'm sorry I haven't been asking you much about what you want to eat lately. Look, Mum and I are really busy right now, and there's a lot of moving parts going on right now, and this is just the sort of thing we're making quick decisions. And the other part of it too is that I would find at least 8 times out of 10, if you involved someone in a decision-making process, they would say, I'm happy to go with whatever you pick. And that's okay, but you're still offering them autonomy. You're giving them the chance to feel involved in a decision, and then they decline.
Yeah, I like that. Mate, you're like a communications coach. Anytime I want to say something to someone, I'm going to run it by you first. Aaron, I really want to say, hey, Matisse, just clean up your goddamn room. It's been messy for a week. And I go, that's probably going to elicit the fight and flight response. I might see how Aaron would word that.
Yeah, well, because naturally, if you make a decision for someone, there is the chance that you could trigger the fight or flight response in them, or make them feel like they don't matter enough that they could perhaps be a part of the consultative process, right? We all know what a RACI is, right, in terms of responsibility, accountability, consulted or informed, and even honoring the lower levels of consulted and informed is offering people some more level of autonomy to make them feel like they matter. You don't want people feeling like they're just subordinates that answer to you.
How good was that? Aaron's insights into the SCARF model and his unique blend of professional acumen and personal warmth have set the stage for an inspiring crescendo in part 2. In our next episode, Aaron completes the SCARF model and talks about the R for relatedness and the F for fairness, and we dive deeper into the art of communication, exploring how to navigate the complexities of interpersonal relationships both at home and in the workplace. Aaron shares more groundbreaking strategies, including the power of energy checks, the impact of language on our interactions, and how to foster a culture of autonomy and respect. Get ready to tune into part 2, where we'll continue to explore the melodies that motivate us, the rhythms that guide us, and the chords that connect us. See what I did there? The old music reference, because he loves music and so do I. So don't miss the chance to elevate your own symphony of success. Thanks for joining us on Rise and Thrive Conversations for Greatness with John Merkus. Remember, you are loved, you are worthy, and you do matter. Embrace the journey of personal growth and motivation. Let's go out there and do something great. Follow or subscribe for more insights and inspiration every Tuesday. Until next time, stay awesome.